in short in a short amount of time. We have 3 objectives for today's learning session. One is we wanted to introduce you to Emerald City's Community College initiative, our Sustainable Development Initiative. We wanted to provide a quick overview of that. Secondly, give you 2 case studies of local councils that are intimately engaged in a community college partnership. That will be sort of led by Tara Marchant from Oakland, from the East Bay, and as well as Avni Jamdar from San Francisco, who'll talk about their community college initiatives. And then ultimately, it says 1, but it's number 3, our goal is to strengthen your own capacity to build Emerald City's community college partnership. So that's what we are going to do, and we're going to do it over a 2-day session. So today is really going to be focused on hearing from your peers in Oakland and San Francisco, and a brief overview of our overall strategy. Tomorrow at the same time, we will actually have representatives from the American Association of Community Colleges really begin to lay out for us how do you actually engage these institutions, these local community college institutions. They're animals unto themselves with their own politics and their own culture and their own economics. And so we hope a broader view of how to initiate and sustain a partnership through your community colleges on tomorrow's session. So that's what we plan to do. And so let me quickly tell you about what the goals and objectives are for our community college initiative. I have to say that most of this has been driven by you, by the local councils and the work that you've been doing. And the power of Emerald Cities is that because things happen in 1, 2, or 3 places, it bubbles up into something larger, into something national where we can bring resources to bear on all of your efforts. So really this community college strategy was initiated by your local partners in the Bay Area. But the big goal is to engage large community local institutions as catalysts in building a sustainable regional economy. The fact of the matter is, unless you've got the schools and the colleges and the hospitals engaged in sustainable development work, we will not achieve the scale, or will we have the accelerated pace that we're looking for without these kinds of institutional drivers. Community colleges are one of those important anchor institutions that we want to engage in the Emerald City's mission. And so our objectives in the Community College Initiative is, 1, is to position community colleges as leaders in energy efficiency and sustainable development. We want to integrate, secondly, community colleges into your local councils. If they're not currently engaged, we want to get them as partners in the multi-stakeholder collaborative that you've put together. 3, we want to decrease the carbon footprint of community college campuses. These are large landowners with large footprint. So our goal is to help them themselves be the model for what could be accomplished by decreasing consumption and expenses of their utility bills, by transforming them into renewable and alternative energy sources, and helping them to actually generate revenue at the same time. And then we also want to connect community colleges to the larger sustainable development movement. These are substantial, they bring substantial resources to sustainable development work, and sector development, through job creation, through workforce development, through project development. Even their intellectual and political capital are essential to your own efforts to change and transform the sustainability market in your region. So our program, we've designed, is a very comprehensive community college program, and you'll hear about one aspect of that today, and we'll talk about the others going forward. But the 4 pieces of it is really about campus sustainability, everything from just helping with the energy assessment to doing the retrofit work. Second aspect of the program is workforce education and training, to help build academic programs that actually will generate the next new generation of folks that know and believe and are skilled in sustainable development, career technical education, and help them also develop community education programs. The third element is small business development, which is, if you know anything about community colleges, very often folks are learning, getting their AA degrees, getting their certificates in a particular trade. It's not to work for somebody, but it's really to start their own businesses. This is where your true entrepreneurs are. So the question is, how do you begin to help them launch green businesses in your communities? And community colleges are catalytic in that regard. And then lastly is to help engage community colleges in the broader sustainable community development work through constituency building and organizing, research planning, project development, and initiatives. The final thing I would say is that we are gathering, we're not complete in this work, but we're gathering resources to help you build these partnerships. Technical assistance and financing when it comes to the campus sustainability. We have national partnerships that we are putting into place that we have that agree to help us with the academic program, including the U.S. Green Building Council, the American Association of Community Colleges, and the Democracy Commitment that will help with academic programs, career technical education, professional development, and community education. Small business development, we actually have a partnership with New Hampshire Community College System, a statewide system that's really done very well in this work. So we want to do some peer exchange and peer learning to help advance this in the campuses in the relationships that you're trying to establish in your local markets. And then finally, in the sustainable development, we are working with the Democracy Commitment to help colleges and campuses build and organize around sustainable community development. So that's a quick overview of what we are proposing. I think we've sent you a briefing paper, a concept paper, which describes it in a little bit more detail. But I believe I'm going to hold off any questions or comments until we actually hear from Avni and Tara to really talk about their work, how they've been able to do it, how they got started, what they've achieved, and lastly, what are their lessons learned. And then from that, we'll then open it up for a conversation. So going forward, I'll ask Avni and Tara to sort of answer those three questions. How did you get started? How did you start a partnership with your community college partners? What have you accomplished, and what are
Gary Harris.
So perhaps, Avni, you might get us started?
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Denise, for that introduction. I'll speak briefly to each of those questions, and then happy to take questions from folks at the end. So for Emerald City, San Francisco, we were in discussions with our steering committee for Emerald City, San Francisco, which meets monthly. We were, brainstorming in terms of how do we get new projects. We had just started out on our pilot project with Mission Housing, and we're excited to explore new markets. Also, community colleges were identified by National as a key market segment for us to explore. So it just seemed like a good place to start. So essentially what got us started was that we had existing relationships with the leadership at City College, which is the community college for the city and county of San Francisco. And several of our stakeholders within our steering committee had very strong relationships with them. The San Francisco Trades Council has an existing PLA with them. Many of our community leaders were already working closely with some of the board members of the Board of Trustees. So we set up an initial meeting with the president of the Board of Trustees, and we pitched Emerald Cities to him, and we also told him what strengths we bring to the table, a strong labor and community partnership. We had our pilot Emerald Cities community workforce agreement to demonstrate the depth of the partnership that we were really bringing. And we had a local investor partner, Bronze Investments, who had raised some money to invest in this field. So that was really a door opener in the sense that people want to talk when you demonstrate that you've raised financing, and Emerald Cities National is bringing that to the table. So that was a huge starting point in terms of having leverage to open doors to talk to people. Trustee Rizzo, whom we spoke with, was really impressed with the CWA, the Community Workforce Agreement, and the kinds of folks that we had brought around the table. So after that meeting, we set up a plan to present to the entire Board of Trustees, and Trustee Rizzo drafted a resolution that he put before the board to state their interest in partnering with Emerald City San Francisco and to sign a letter of commitment to explore energy efficiency work with us. So we, Emerald City's directors, so that myself and some of my co-chairs from Labor and Community, we went to the Board of Trustees meeting in April 25th, and we presented Emerald Cities to the board, explained what we do, our mission and vision. And really, the board was very excited to see the diversity around the table that Emerald Cities brought forward. And it strongly resonated with their campus sustainability plan, with their goals to integrate workforce in terms of their vocational education courses and so on. So it just seemed like a really great match. We kind of brought together the capital piece, which really, given the current financial situation, especially for California community colleges, with the whole workforce and community piece, was just a really compelling argument and set of folks to work with. So the Board of Trustees unanimously passed the resolution and expressed a lot of excitement to work with Emerald Cities and saw us immediately as an ally, which I thought was a huge win in terms of, where we weren't just a company approaching them to do energy retrofit. We were a true ally in many senses. So that, I thought, was the real deal maker to take those relationships that we already had with them and to get the entire board behind us. So subsequently, we signed a letter of commitment with City College. The Vice Chancellor for Finance and Administration actually signed it on behalf of the college. And since then, we have been in a data gathering mode. We are in the process of creating a preliminary work plan that we can basically pitch to investors and financiers. So that's sort of where we've gotten with City College. I would say that some of the key lessons learned was, really using the relationships that are already in place. That trust is really the key in big agencies to commit to Emerald Cities, and our local stakeholders have spent their entire careers working with a lot of these folks. And so leveraging that expedited the process by months. We just instantly had acceptance from the college. Also, City College pays fairly low rates for energy, and that could be seen as a barrier to doing energy efficiency retrofits from a finance perspective. But we sort of serendipitously, this is the year that energy rates go up for City College. They pay more to the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission. And also having upfront capital that they don't have to spend out of pocket is a compelling case for them. So just all of those factors coming together brought us to signing the letter and exploring work with them. And that's how we got here. I will stop there and turn it over to Tara.
Thank you, Avni. Tara, can you tell us your story? We're letting everyone know that you're not on a camera, but if you can just verbally tell us answer those three questions: how you got started, what have you accomplished, and what are your lessons learned?
Sure. I think, the thing that Avni mentioned that was similar to the Oakland story was, we were looking at assessing our project and what was going to be available to us. The difference with San Francisco and Oakland was that our council initiated under national, sort of objective. We started trying to do municipalities, and we tried to do multifamily affordable housing, and we spent a lot of energy meeting with those stakeholders, only to find out that, in fact, those two sectors had been pretty well addressed, that the East Bay, through its Green Corridor Partnership, had really done a lot of the work in those buildings. So part of our impetus is we really had to start fresh, and we had to think, oh my gosh, we need to go to a completely different sector. What has a lot of buildings? What engages all our stakeholders? Who's already have a relationship with our members? And the national called us up saying we're coming into town, and so that facilitated a very, very quick conversation with Peralta in terms of national is coming, and we wanted to set up a dialogue. Now, in terms of a sort of a SWOT analysis, there was a lot of alignment already with Peralta. I had a very strong relationship with two of the trustees. I also knew the Green Cord jobs campaign that had been developed over the last few years. I knew several of the folks within that workforce, curriculum development, and they were very excited about partnerships because they have a very strong sustainability plan. Peralta actually has probably one of the most aggressive. They want to be net zero on all their campuses. There are 5 campuses, 4 school campuses, and 1 district office campus, and they want to be net zero by 2050. The community is so supportive of all the work that they're doing that they had put out a measure, a bond measure, and they had won approval of the public to have $450 million for capital campaigns to do improvements, but they could not use those dollars for their retrofits or energy efficiency. So they immediately saw the partnership with Emerald Cities as a win because they could then do the capital campaigns and address many of their wish lists that they could not address without that help. So we actually, like Avni said, it really was an easy conversation in terms of seeing the value that Emerald Cities could present. The challenge, and I think this is probably happens in all campuses, is there are many leadership levels in trying to figure out who's going to do what do you need to do in terms of the background in order to get your campaign validated and signed off with an MOU, and then who are the people you have to engage with in the meantime. So like San Francisco, we drafted an MOU. I built a relationship with a newly hired personnel, which was a sustainability manager. We strategized by who needed to be in the first sit-down meeting. We knew we had to get the sign-off from the chancellor, who was very, very much about green and sustainability. But we also knew that this chancellor was going to be leaving in June, so by July. So we knew that we had to get the MOU signed, and then now we're in a position where we have to get the new chancellor on board. So these are the things that we sort of anticipate. What can you take advantage of now, which was, you've got all the might and support and excitement, and then you have to anticipate the challenges, which is what we're preparing now, which is the transition to new leadership. So what I did in terms of setting this up is we brought in the labor partners, we brought in our workforce partners, we brought in the trustees and the folks from the curriculum development around green jobs. We sat at the table, we pitched what we wanted to do, and we really put a very big wish list out there, which was what excited them. We wanted business incubation. We wanted procurement for small business contractors so that they could go union. We wanted, community workforce agreements so that we had local hiring as pinpointed towards the community. And all of that the community college believed in because it's their mission. They want to help their local constituents. They want to help disadvantaged communities. What we also knew was that over the past decade, maybe last 15 years, that the relationship between the labor partners and the workforce apprenticeship partners and the college was not healthy. It was very competitive. There was a lot of distrust. So that was one of the things that we promised that we would work on in terms of the integration plan to rebuild that trust, because it used to be an incredibly healthy partnership 20 years ago, and as funding started to disappear, it became very aggressive and competitive and a lot of mistrust. So that was probably the key figure that we knew moving forward would be a win for us, for all our members and our partnerships. And then Peralta, of course, knowing that it's such an anchor institution, didn't want to be looked at poorly, that they weren't good partners. So they understand that they need to come up to this meeting. We got our MOU passed. And then in the meantime, because the MOU, we met on February and our MOU passed in May, I took it upon myself because I knew that the disadvantage that I had with Peralta was they were moving fast. They have $450 million. They had spent $125. They were going quickly. They have partnerships left, right, and center. They have ESCOs coming to their table. And I said I had to create value and say that we are serious partners and that this means business. So with the sustainability manager, we said, let's benchmark the buildings. National had asked all of our councils to learn how to use the EPA portfolio, and I said, well, couldn't be a better project to start and figure this out. And we ended up working with a member partner who does a lot of energy efficiencies for the East Bay. They signed on to work with us. Both of us volunteered our time. I got an intern to work with us, and we benchmarked 80 buildings, temporary buildings and current buildings. That was a huge, huge, pretty much gift to Laney, and they recognized that we really were invested in showing value and not just coming in to take credit for energy efficiency and providing financing. But we wanted that as well. In the meantime, the thing that's happened is we live in an area here, which we're fortunate about in California, is that there is a lot of money out there around pilot projects, a lot of push around climate policy. The school and their net zero objective is looking at their transit, their vehicle miles, their carbon. So there's a lot of stakeholders buzzy around looking for project delivery. And I happened upon a forum in which PG&E was granting over $200,000 in TA dollars for a net zero project. I quickly involved Peralta's staff and said, do you guys have anything? They did. We submitted the grant, and we won the TA dollars. So again, here, Emerald City wasn't just acting as a broker for itself. It was acting as a broker to facilitate and accelerate their wins, because if we're good partners, we will be brought to the table. And I feel like that's definitely occurring, that Peralta is saying, hey, when can you come to this conversation? In fact, today they're like, hey, Charlie, we forgot to invite you. Can you show up at 1 o'clock today? And that's the kind of thing that I think Emerald City has a unique position in. Is yes, we can bring the finance. Yes, we can bring the technical excellence. But we're good partners. We really, really want these funding, the funding dollars and the benefits to happen to the communities and have a bigger outcome. I think that the lessons learned, I think we're still in the process of learning them. One, benchmarking at community college is absolutely one of the most difficult things to do, and so be prepared for it. Community colleges don't organize things in a way. They're like building meter, building gas meter. It's like gas meters attached to 20 buildings. So you have a very complicated process. So, be prepared for very unusual terms that aren't normal for, just traditional commercial building retrofit. There's a lot of stakeholders. As I've mentioned before, and I think, Denise will speak to, you've got to have the staff involved. We've got the trustees on board. We've got the administrators on board. We've got the general service folks on board, but the staff can stop it. So I know that for Oakland, we're going to be spending a lot of time really building that partnership with the staff and the curriculum, because we really want them to be invested in these outcomes so that our projects will go forward. And I think, finally, you find those 1 or 2 champions who can truly push it through. I have about 2 or 3, and it just really allows them to pick up the phone and really address the challenges at hand and move forward, and just be flexible. So that would be my sort of wrap-up. I look forward to telling you how it all goes, because we're just going to be sitting down now that we've benchmarked the buildings to start to strategize around project delivery, and I really look forward to sharing what we find out.
Great. Thank you so much, Tara and Avni. You're really vanguards in this work, and we appreciate all the initiative that you've taken and the accomplishments to date. Just a couple of things before we open it up that I wanted to hear, what I heard from both of your stories. One is that there is a lot of mission alignment between what community colleges are in business of doing and our own mission. And so it's an easy conversation when it comes to education and jobs and workforce and inclusion of communities of color. So that's important. Secondly, relationships are key, that your access into these spaces really came out of the numerous relationships among your you're collaborative that allowed for easy conversation. But that relationship, those relationships, are then reinforced through trust. And how do you build trust? So a lot of it is through bringing the technical assistance to the table and brokering relationships and bringing dollars to the table. So that's an essential part of the work. I also got a sense that understanding the community college itself and knowing its own commitment to sustainability is a good starting place, and to see if there is a sustainability plan for the campus and where you can wedge yourself into and be a value-added player is a part of this. You also executed MOUs, so you solidified and codified the relationship, so it's not informal, but that there is a loose formal relationship going forward. So those are some of the things I've heard, and I would just like to, at this point, open it up to your colleagues around the country to ask the questions that they're burning to ask. And those questions can relate to either any of the case studies and the real work that's happening in your spaces, or to the broader community college initiative and what we're trying to stitch together at the national level. And I guess we can get there are two ways to engage us. One is through conversation, but is there a chat feature as well, right?
Mm-hmm. There's a chat feature located on your, if you hover over your screen on the right-hand side, you can type in your questions, or if you're on the phone, you can just speak. We'll hear you.
So Gary Harris from Atlanta, I believe. How can the models that you describe be translated to the university and college level? Thank you for that question, Gary. I'm not sure if there's Tara or Avni would like to answer that. I would give my quick reply would be, I think all the elements that we talked about. It's a little different. The mission alignment issue becomes the different starting place, and understanding, is the four-year higher ed institution, is it a private sector or is it a public sector institution? There will be a difference with respect to your entry point. I would also say that the difference at the community college is that there is community sort of embedded in their educational agenda, and so there again may be where workforce and job creation and community engagement are easier concepts for them to work with than a four-year institution that is really just education oriented and transferring people out of four-year institutions on into professional careers. So there is a unique opportunity, I think, at the community college level that may not inherently exist within the four-year institutions. But having said that, everything else seems to be complementary, so that building on existing relationships, understanding their sustainability agenda, building trust, coming to the table with not your hand out but something to hand up, are all important elements that need to be brought into your four-year strategy, institutional strategy.
Hi, Denise. This is Tara. That's a good question. I think one of the things I found here, because we had many conversations with folks who were part of Berkeley, and there was quite a bit of pushback because the college or the university had a lot more funds, so I think they're in general less open to partnering because they have a lot of access to dollars, to grants, and they have different objectives, as you were mentioning. I think one of the things that showed up in our meetings in terms of relating with the university is they do a lot of research, and that research then helps them deliver on policy and financing, like benchmarking and modeling and that kind of thing. I think that's one thing that with the community college we'll be able to get some skills within Emerald Cities, and I think universities want to be able to parlay that kind of data-rich information into driving policy and funding. That's not an obvious match, but it is one thing to be conscious of when you go in, is that they really, like you were saying, Denise, have a different frame in terms of, how they direct their resources and their outcomes.
I'd agree. We've had some discussions about engaging the University of California system, and it just it works very differently from being based very much in the community that community colleges are. It's a very different not a very different. It's a slightly different approach in terms of getting in touch with their leadership. It's not quite as locally focused, as Denise said there, and Tara, really good point about research and policy is really where they're focused. I mean, a lot of them are researching community college training programs and so on. So really, it's a different approach, and we haven't quite found that the most natural place to start, but really we will get to the universities as well because they have a lot of campuses.
Louis Partain.
Hi, Louis. I would also mention that notwithstanding the different educational objectives, and with community colleges having a strong workforce and economic development underpinning to their mission, which is a strength. It plays exactly into the mission of Emerald Cities. But even with the four-year institutions, I think as long as you have a value proposition that you bring to the college, because there are hundreds of colleges, four-year institutions that have signed on to a campus climate initiative, or the Clinton initiative, I believe it is, that says that we believe in green campusing, and they're greening their campuses. So your job is just to find the value proposition for Emerald Cities, and I believe that by talking about public-private and community partnerships, and particularly bringing new kinds of financing to the table, I think that's a new framework for them, because very often they use bond measures, their ability to issue bonds to do their capital improvement budgets. We're bringing to them a new way to hold on to their money and leverage private sector dollars, and so I think you can often lead with that and have a conversation that you didn't think you would normally have, particularly with your facilities folks at the university. Are there any other questions? It's such a rich area. I'm sure there's all kinds of things lurking in your mind that you're just dying to get out.
Well, I think, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to add a little bit about the community workforce agreement if there were no further questions.
That would be great, and I also would like Tara to talk about how did you resolve that labor issue with the community college. So please go ahead, Avni, and then Tara, if you can answer that question.
So what was core to our letter of commitment with City College was, it was a very general letter saying we're going to explore energy retrofit work together, but the very firm requirement in there was that we're going to negotiate a community workforce agreement. When the board heard our presentation, they basically asked us what was unique about the community workforce agreement, how do we negotiate it in our pilot, and I thought that was really an interesting conversation. They asked us about how the community and workforce partners were in the actual negotiations, which never routinely happens, and they thought that was really good that the community was involved. The client, Mission Housing in that case, allowed community and workforce representatives and leaders to be at the table, and so did the trades. So in that meeting, they asked Emerald Cities if we would want to replicate that process. And we said, absolutely, we really want to have community represented, which was a big commitment from the college itself, because we thought we would have to make a case all over again to get our community folks to the table. And the college, in fact, asked us a really leading question saying, would you want to have the same format to have community and workforce in the active negotiations with City College? And we said, well, if the board allows us to caucus and negotiate the community and workforce on your side of the table, we would really like to do that again. And so we have a commitment from the board to let us repeat that process, which got us to a really exciting agreement in our pilot, to whether it's working off of their existing PLA and taking it forward and adding our language to it, or just starting from our pilot CWA. We're not quite at that stage, but we've already put in place the agreement that we're going to work towards through a very thorough process of community engagement. So I just thought that was a very important piece to the process coming up.
Excellent. And Tara, you said in your opening conversation that one of the challenges that you faced was that there was a very a sticky or underdeveloped relationship between labor and the community college. How was that resolved?
Well, it's still in the process. I think the thing that they have a very good PLA already established, and it actually has fairly strong local hire benefits. It has very bad small business procurement requests. And so the challenge that I think really shows up a lot in these PLAs, the PLAs are drafted, and in East Oakland, in the East Bay and Oakland in particular, we have very strong community outcomes in the PLA, but there's no compliance. There is no monitoring. So it's really a useless document because nobody's, overseeing it. So in our MOU, we said that we were going to provide that, monitor and compliance, create some sort of system to which the access to apprenticeship, the payment for apprenticeship level, the hours, small business procurement would actually be developed so that both labor and the schools would have something that was transparent, because it's easy for them to point fingers at each other, but if nobody's actually monitoring, where these jobs are going, how the pipeline is being developed, then there's no way that you can fix it. So I think, we identified immediately that we needed to have a size letter on the PLA that would ask for these strengthened outcomes around small business development, procurement, and apprenticeship. And then within our MOU, we said as we develop and financing comes on the project, that we would draft in more specific community outcomes, the way that Emerald City, has really supported us to do, really looking at the access point for low-income communities, disadvantaged communities, and the students themselves, and also helping the contractors. Because again, a lot of, as Denise had mentioned, contractors, the company community colleges get the certification so they can do more, but they have no relationship with, the unions or how to become a union contractor. So that's another thing that our stakeholders want to address, is how to build the ability for the minority contractors and women contractors to be part of that viable system so that those PLAs actually speak to their best interests. We're obviously going to see that come to fruition, but I think everyone, even labor, is interested in the system of transparency so that they don't get blamed when the PLA doesn't function, and the community actually can see some true wins and true development.
Great. And wasn't there some other accomplishment between the chancellor and the local building trades council and their engagement with community colleges going forward?
Oh, yes, you're right. There's so many little things. Yeah, so one of the things was that within the policy, there was supposed to be union representation on the committees at the schools, but over the last decade, the unions have not been requested or invited to participate in these overseeing committees. And through our conversation, the chancellor said, I want union representation on these committees so that we can actually bring the history of union back into our curriculum, to really tell what the story is, to tell what the options, to tell the impact, so that we're not treating it as an external, as part of our internal community, objective is that people are part of this pipeline. So that was a big win because that really showed labor that they were being invited to the table and they weren't seen as a conflicting partnership, that they were forced to be in partnership with labor, that they were actually being invited into the conversation.
So that's really an important, powerful story on both sides about the relationship that Emerald Cities brings to community colleges, which is the strong and rich relationship we have with labor, and that we are not skirting this, but we want it fully integrated in the work, and also our relationship with communities, and they have valued both of those partnerships. We have a question here from Gary, and the question is, was the project champion the college president or the facility manager? And where do you focus your attention to foster the relationship and build trust?
So for Peralta, we had both champions. Obviously, we lucked out big time because we just hired a sustainability manager whose sole role was to make projects sustainable and get them to this net zero. But he only had a year contract, and fortunately, the year's gone by and he's been hired again, so he's proven his worth. So we had somebody internally at the general service department who really knew his stuff. He was LEED certified. He had a lot of skills. So that was a really huge advantage for us. But we also had it at the trustee and the chancellor level, which means they're asking more of their staff and their curriculum. I think, you want to make sure that the people who, either the trustees or the chancellor, the ones who sign off on this, are champions. But then the people who move it, you really need somebody day to day, because the chancellors and trustees aren't at college, are working on the internals on a day-to-day basis.
I'd agree. Again, in initiating the conversation and sealing the deal in the big picture conversation, it was the board of trustees, and I would say as many trustees as you can win over, the easier your job. So we had about 3 or 4 trustees briefed beforehand before we even got to the meeting. So that was key. Also, the vice chancellor for finance and administration, he is really our sort of executive officer at their end, really. So he makes the contacts for us with the staff, and then it's a question of building those champions with the staff as well. So now we have a good relationship with their buildings and facilities maintenance person, really to get the data from them. It just takes a lot of work. You need to win over their trust. The staff really need to see you as an ally, because as much as you've convinced the leadership that you're an ally, you have to convince the staff. And that takes some time. It takes some conversations to say, we're here to help you. We're not here to create more work for you, but also, feel comfortable sharing your data with us. So I think that, we're creating champions along the way as we go deeper into the execution phase. But at the outset, the champions were more the leadership, the trustees, and the chancellor.
Now, I might say that to understand the scope and scale of this effort, I mean, Tara and Avni, would you basically talk about the size of this portfolio, this community college portfolio in your spaces? How many campuses and buildings, square footage?
Absolutely.
I don't have the square footage, but I'll quickly say we have 5 campuses, 4 of which are for students, about 80 buildings, and I think the total for the students is about 30,000. And then there's our part-time and part-time staff, but that's more the full-time staff.
So for City College, we have 90,000 full-time staff and students, and 10 campuses across the city, and they have I forget the square footage. It's really huge. I'm forgetting. I don't want to mention a number that's incorrect, but it's 10 campuses and obviously several buildings within that. I can give more details on their energy use and stuff, but really, I think it's one of the largest community colleges in the country in terms of scale.
It's a system. It's not just the colleges. Okay, that's great.
Well, yes, but I think San Francisco, they're both two community college systems, but the city of San Francisco is called the city of San Francisco Community College with those 10 campuses. So it is, because they worked at the level of the chancellor and the trustees, it is the entire system that's underway. And then, as you know, identifying buildings within those campuses that are really the key target for the greatest amount of carbon reduction. And then one of the more interesting projects is the net zero. It's a brand new. Most of them are existing buildings, but there is a brand new development taking place in Peralta, and Laney College is building a net zero sustainability center, which is about 30,000 square feet. That's where PG&E is coming in to partner in the design of the state-of-the-art facilities. Am I saying that correctly, Tara?
Yes, they're doing it in 2 phases. They've got approval from the board on phase 1, which actually means they will build the first phase through their capital bond measure, which is $4.5 million. And then phase 2 is the larger building. The center is going to be a community. The large center is going to be a community center, so it's going to be, the ability for the community to walk through, for contractors, for students to actually take courses there, but be able to see it as it's happening, so you can actually walk the building and see things, and whether it's wind, solar, water, bio. I don't even know all the terms, but they're really doing, and it's net zero only because that's what PG&E requested. It's actually a higher standard. It's a living house standard, which is a European standard that they're going for. So they want the building to be the center in the Northern California to which curriculum, students, contracting, new technologies use that campus as a showcase. So it's quite exciting, and they've been developing the idea for 5 years, and just happened that we came in at the time for net zero. So I feel really excited that Emerald Cities was able to push them to get in front of the Board of Trustees, but with this grant opportunity.
Yes,
I think
that there's just.
And I just want. Oh, sorry. I just wanted to add one thing about it, and with this campus, even though we're in design and we're with architects, and it's beyond my understanding and capacity to really share, I've been very clear that our objective is, when it's developed in a career pathway and union pathway, and that the curriculum and the education that's developed is state-of-the-art for the community and for the development of businesses. So they understand who Emerald Cities is and why we have landed there. And even though it may not be built like the full campus for another year, we are going to be a part of that conversation and helping direct it.
And perhaps maybe the last question before we sign off is that, are these turnkey projects, and are you doing all the work, including audits, design, and retrofits?
When you say turnkey, can you explain to me again that phrasing?
So basically, is it? I would interpret this as, is this a standard? Is there a formula for doing this, and is there a way to replicate this in other projects, so that people can, in other cities, so people can pretty much plug and play? I would say at this point we're ad hoc. It's figure it as you go. In both the sites, we have received, in one situation, granted a technical assistance grant request to actually hire someone to go in and do the audits and project design, and looking at the financing structure that would best work for San Francisco. I believe Oakland has just made a technical assistance grant request to do the same kind of thing. So we're not at the turnkey stage, but our goal is to develop a financing platform and to provide a technical assistance team that would be very clear about how this particular asset class operates and how you actually execute and operationalize an energy efficiency project on college campuses. So we're not there, and that's why our goal is to convene, and I'll try to put an ask out to each of you, to convene representatives from each of our campuses so that they can come together and actually engage in a lot of cross-learning about the experience. And so out of these conversations about campus sustainability, about curriculum, about business incubation, about the broader sustainable development work, that we are actually building a body of work that in fact can be exported and then become a turnkey effort. So our overall goal is for each of you to find a way into your community college system or a particular campus. The kinds of partnerships that you can build will have a multiplier effect on all the things that you're trying to do to build out a sustainable development sector. So I might ask this question of each of you, and that is this something, do you currently have a relationship with community colleges in your region? And is this something that you would like to have people engage with Emerald Cities in this space? And the reason I ask is because we are looking to have a community college launch of our community college initiative in the Bay Area. We're looking at the middle of October. And to the extent that you want to identify and then ultimately invite some key stakeholders at the community colleges to this launch, it would be a way. We're having a day-and-a-half convening. We will be talking about all aspects of how to finance, campus sustainability work. We'll be talking about education and training curriculum and sustainability. We'll be talking about business incubation and sustainable development. So it will be a day-and-a-half convening. We hope to have press there for this launch, but I think it's also a good opportunity to bring your local stakeholders into the conversation. So can anyone just let me know if this is something that you would be interested in? You can speak up now, or otherwise let us know, and we can follow up with you about how to engage.
This is Gina with Contra Costa Workforce Development Board, and we do have a strong working relationship with our chancellor of our Contra Costa Community College District here. So we're excited about it. We also have a strong working relationship with the chairperson of the Board of Trustees for Doctors Medical Center. So we're also interested in exploring the possibility of partnering with our other
university, your hospitals and medical facilities?
Definitely hospitals and our county buildings.
Great. Fabulous. I may mention that in September for our session, we will have we'll be working with Healthcare Without Harm, which will be talking about health institutions as the anchor institution strategy. It's a very exciting set of opportunities around health and medical facilities that we want to bring to your attention, but that will be in September. Well, we look forward to Atlanta. There's Gary Harris says he's involved in some of the same work at the university and college levels and could add value and perspective at the workshop. So, Gary, we look forward to talking to you further about that. There are no other comments. What I want to encourage you to do is to join us tomorrow, because you will hear straight from the horse's mouth from folks that are fully engaged in the sustainability work of community colleges around the country. There's about 400 of them that are signed on to create sustainable campuses, and we'll really help teach you about how these colleges are structured and who you engage with. Who you engage with for campus sustainability is very different from who you engage with on educational and workforce programs and other aspects of this initiative. So it'll be an exciting, dynamic conversation. Deborah Rowe will light up the wires. She's a very engaging presenter, and we look forward to expanding your work and our mission in greening our cities, building our communities, and strengthening our democracy. So with that, let's all give Tara and Avni a round of applause, whether they can hear it or not. We congratulate them on their hard work, on their accomplishments, and thank you for sharing your experiences with the rest of your colleagues. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.